Have you checked the children? You're a little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome to the horror show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And back again, Jaime and Fuego.
That's right, we are here to finally discuss the finale, and frankly, we're just going to cover our overall season thoughts in this video as well for the first season, we can say now, first season of Chucky. So I'm going to get into this like we do our reviews overall, or like we do our reviews every time, Fuego, starting with our overall thoughts. And I'm going to say that once again, Don Mancini goes a little batshit crazy in the third act.
Yeah, I can definitely concur with that. And I mean, dare I say, I feel like where he tried to make amends with some of the cult stuff in this, I wasn't as into it because I felt like Cult was just so ambitious and I don't even know if ambitious is the proper word. Like more
Dude,
like
he made some wild choices in this one.
Well, especially with what happens with one particular character at the very end, I was like, really, dude? Okay, because she's still going to be around. Yeah, exactly. so for that reason, I was just like, okay, man. But as a whole, if I'm going to give like just thoughts about these 8 episodes as like kind of an all-encompassing sort of situation, I think he succeeded.
No. Let's hold off on that.
Okay,
let's hold off on the season stuff. Let's focus just on 8 first.
On this particular episode,
yeah.
It's. Well, batshit crazy, as you kind of implied. It's so much went for it, and dare I say, think that with the legacy characters and the new characters trying to coexist, I felt like it was just a tiny bit of an overstuffing of the turkey. You know, I mean, that's just me personally, obviously, and just the coexistence and the intermingling of them, there's a reason why they interacted a little bit, but then they were split off to their separate narratives, I think, without discussing presumed fates of one who I think is probably okay, you know, with a particular explosion that we had. So I'm not going to read into things, but as a whole, I still, well, yeah, you said you didn't want me like going.
Not yet for the whole season, no.
Yes,
just this episode.
No,
okay.
No entirety, but no, I found it to be a amusingly bonkers, satisfying conclusion that left enough, you know, leeway. Actually, more unresolved stuff than I was anticipating, and so yeah, I'm much more excited about a second season than I thought that I would be.
So I agree. I would say that it was at least a satisfying final episode. A lot happened, and there's still room to continue going forward, which is nice. There are some things that are still very like, about it, you know, that maybe we'll get into when we get into sort of the more spoilery section of everything. But I thought that while it was crazy, it was at least interesting. It kept me guessing. I didn't know where things were going to go, and I liked how everything resolved for the most part. I mean, all the kids are somehow super bonded by the end, in spite of one of them literally being the worst person on earth to one of the others for the first whole half of the season.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, overall, it was a satisfying conclusion to kind of a roller coaster of a season. So this episode, the story focused on the melding of the two storylines, as Fuego was kind of alluding to. So the kids storyline and the Andy, Kyle, Jennifer Tilly, and Nika storyline all played against each other. They came together last episode and played off of each other this entire episode. And there was some interesting things, but I gotta admit, the very, very end of the episode was such a weird...
With the reveal of that particular character?
No. After that, with Chucky as a crypt keeper, essentially.
Oh, well, I thought that was more so tied in with the behind-the-scenes sort of thing that they showed afterwards. Because
really? I thought that was that's not how the episode actually ended?
That's one thing that I have to say is they baited all of us. They were like, it's going to be a 90-minute episode, and then turns out it was like, no, it was like right around an hour, and then there's all this behind-the-scenes stuff and interviews and whatever. So yeah, that was kind of a bait and switch sort of situation, which stunk in my estimation. But
I don't think that was a part of that. I think that was a part of the end of the first season of Chucky. And then it said Chucky season 2 coming next year, and then it went to the behind-the-scenes stuff.
I would politely disagree. I think that they didn't. I mean, they didn't even get greenlit until just like a day or two ago, right? So for that reason, I feel like they had that waiting in the wings, and then they were like, "Oh, if there is a second season, we have a reveal," and then we segue right into the behind the scenes stuff. So I didn't think that was like in the context of the storytelling. It was just, but
I don't
well,
know. I mean, I don't know. I felt like it was such an odd way to end the series. And I don't feel like I was alone on thinking that. But we'll see. I guess we'll see with the comments.
Well, it was very much like, and since I just got done watching Behind the Monsters on Shudder the other day, and yeah, Freddy Krueger as himself used to host MTV and like music video blocks and stuff like that. So that was the vibe that I got, where it was not in the context of the story; it was specifically for promotional purposes. But that's
Interesting.
Just me.
Well, I guess I guess we'll get everyone's opinion and see where the majority lies. Now,
Yeah.
the actual story, though, we resolve the whole Junior being enticed by Chucky to kill someone, and that being the thing that allows Chucky to transfer his soul or splinter his soul 72 more times into 72 new dolls. And like, there's no real explanation beyond Chucky needed a kid to kill in order for him to be able to do that. And it's like, well, that's not quite enough. But I mean, I guess,
dude, I felt the same way. And this unfortunately, as much as I enjoyed it to a degree, it did kind of exploit some of the worst aspects of the writing on Colt, where you're just like, oh, this doesn't really make sense, and they're like, well, we're gonna make it we're gonna make even less sense, so to speak, about just the splintering aspect. And most notably where, okay, you've got one head talking to one head, and then you've got, still with Dora, and where there were multiple like splinterings of Chucky all conversing with each other. I almost feel like there has to be like a dominant one. There has to be some sort of like main major Chucky, and I don't know if we ever had a revelation if that was possible. And
no,
so
I got the impression that might be a thing when the doll showed up and Jennifer Tilly saw the doll when like Nico was about to kill her, and like the doll says stop. I was like, oh, is that like Chucky Prime? But no,
Chucky Prime, good way of putting it.
Yeah, I don't know if there is a Chucky Prime or not, and I would think. If Mancini is smart with it, I would think that we haven't seen Chucky Prime yet. Like, Chucky Prime is probably, he did all this and then he left and he's off hidden somewhere to ensure that his soul continues on even in the event of all of these other Chuckies dying off. I feel like they could still pull Chucky Prime out of a proverbial hat even when all the other Chuckies are dead. So that like could be a back pocket thing for Mancini, But
if I can interject real quick, sorry, man,
sure.
because
Nope.
I'm not going to be, because,
No, it's cool. I do it enough to you.
I know. At the end of Colt, dude, I really thought
But what I was saying is, no, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
At the end of Colt, I thought, what Dora is Fiona's character, right? I thought she was most definitely, if there was any Chucky Prime, it was...
No, Nika.
Mika. Damn, why do I keep saying Dora? Jesus, the Explorer. Stupid ass Fuego. Yeah, I thought his daughter's character was most definitely, if anyone, the Chucky Prime, so to speak.
I thought so too.
Yeah, and I think that's been a little dispelled, obviously.
Well, more than a little dispelled. Well, if not dispelled, the Chucky Prime's gone. Yeah, I mean, Jesus.
Yeah, right?
No, that's right. Yeah, she didn't... I was under the impression maybe she separated the Chucky from Nika, but no, they're still melded together. She's just much more immobile now. But anyway, okay, so what happens is Chucky basically tells Junior, let's go have some fun, and we have plans and all this stuff, and Junior meets Tiffany and sees this whole thing go down while Devin is tied up to a chair. Jake's boyfriend is tied up to a chair. And there's this whole back and forth because Tiffany is having a spat with Fiona Chucky because, Jesus, there's so many dolls at this point.
I know.
So it's the doll that's Chucky who is egging Tiffany on to kill Nika in spite of the fact that part of his soul is in there. And Tiffany refuses to do so. And so he tries to make Junior do it. And what ends up happening? I can't remember. Junior doesn't do it. Instead, he lunges at Chucky, right? Doesn't he stab? Oh yeah, so he lunges at Chucky and stabs Chucky, but when that happens, he ends up... I'm conflating two different scenes, aren't I? Because the Chucky stab thing happens with Lexi behind the movie screen. So anyway,
which is the end of Junior, so to speak.
Yeah, right. So that's what ends up happening with Junior, is where I was going anyway. Like Junior he breaks bad, but then he refuses to kill Lexi and ends up dying while killing that particular Chucky doll.
Yeah, I have to say the scenes where Junior was with Jennifer Tilly and with like those various versions of Chucky and stuff, I felt like that's where it showed the strength of that actor. He's a little younger. He felt out of place. He didn't feel like he should have been there, and I guess that's how it was written. You know,
I kind of liked him better than Devin and Jake, honestly.
Well, we got very little of Jake in this episode until like the second and the third act. You know, because they were like more or less the kids were non-existent for the first like 20 or 30 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was very much just trying to resolve some of these other loophole scenarios and whatnot. But...
And then there's another scene that we didn't talk about that happens. That's a very big scene. So Mayor Mom leading a press conference in front of the screening of Frankenstein that they're supposed to have for the town.
Yep, the OG Frankenstein.
Yes, and both Lexi and I think Caroline, was it? The little girl?
Mm-hmm. Yep, the little
that is obsessed with the Chucky doll. They're there to, you know, let everyone into the screening, and the celebrity guest happens to be Jennifer Tilly, who comes out, and that's why they're like, and the plan is that she's donated 72 vintage good guy dolls to go to, you know, sick kids all across the country, right? As a part of a hospital initiative. And she has a Chucky doll, but in the meantime, Junior acts like he's being held by a Chucky doll, and Lexi notices behind and goes inside, and that's how she gets lured by them to have that confrontation. Meanwhile, the little girl yells and screams about wanting a Chucky doll, so Jennifer Tilly gives her the Chucky doll that she has, and everyone goes in to watch the movie. While they're in the movie, the Chucky doll hops off his chair and goes underneath, and here's where the series got stupid to me.
It got derpy as fuck.
This is
dude.
so
It
dumb.
was,
He stabs once up into the seat, and that kills the person. And then he moves on to the next thing, and he kills. I think I counted. I think there were 7 or 8 bodies in the theater alone that he killed by crawling under the seat, stabbing once, and I'm like, look, if I get stabbed through the seat, I may want to die, but that's not gonna kill me. I'm gonna bleed, but there's plenty of time for me to get help, and I'll be bleeding out my butthole or bleeding out of my leg, or if I'm female, possibly bleeding out of my no-no zone. And, you know, there's a lot of badness that comes with that. It would be certainly painful, but I wouldn't die from it.
No.
So, like, he kills 8 people in the most unrealistic way, and so I kind of hated this scene, Fuego. What about you?
I thought it was stoops, dude. It was really bad, and I mean, also kind of showed that they didn't have the practicality for some kills. And so,
I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. It was just dumb, especially with the mayor's, you know, husband, Lexi's father, and the fact that would you be bleeding out of your mouth after being stabbed up your ass? I don't. You know, maybe if he was like stabbing them from the back or whatever, but he would have been seen by the other people in the theater, and so that entire scene just.
Well, there was a leap in logic. Frankly, there was a leap in logic that we had to take as an audience, because so it was the dad, the mom, and then the little girl and Chucky. And Chucky hops off, and then he goes and he stabs the seat that the mom was in just as they all stand up.
Standing up, yeah.
And then the dad sits back down in his seat, which is still a seat away from the daughter. And then when we cut back to them, he's sitting next to the daughter dead. So it's like at some point he switched seats. Like, you can assume, okay, maybe she was gone long enough, he wanted to sit next to his daughter while the movie was going on. But they never indicated that Chucky stayed there long enough to wait until someone was there to stab. You know what I mean? They moved on to, like, there was so many leaps that, like, I had to fill in the gaps on that was frustrating to me.
Well, and also the fact that what Caroline, I think her name was, right? Was
Yeah, I think so.
yeah, she knew that these Chucky dolls were evil, and yet when the one that she clamored for disappears right beside her, and it was like her awareness of the evil of Chucky felt like it like kind of evaporated like conveniently throughout the series, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of bummed me out and kind of aggravated me, but. Yeah, aside from that scene, I felt like performance-wise, most of our young actors were better in this particular episode than they were throughout.
I felt
Uh,
Devin was more wooden in this one than he had been in a while.
he had less.
He just had yeah, he didn't have very much to do. And what I noticed in what was a number of times in the trio reaction shots, Devin was relatively wooden, whereas at least Jake, he's got that giant fish mouth, but at least he uses it to like get across emotions. Devin is just pretty blank faced a lot of the time, deer in headlights almost a lot of the time.
Are
And
you
I'm
talking
like,
about like the end scene with the funeral and everything, and
yeah, the
how
funeral, and when they're at the grave site, and like,
I just didn't think Devin gave much of a shit about that particular character, and so for
I
that
guess,
reason,
I
he's
guess.
not-
Okay, acting wise, again, I like certain people more than others. I'm not tearing down on any of the kids because they're still kids and they're still working it out. But, I'm more engaged with the more seasoned actors than I am with the kids, I got to be honest.
Okay, so then, like, how well do you think Alex was in this episode then?
I liked Alex Vincent in this episode. I think there were some things that weren't explained, and if they actually did what they made us think that they did in this episode with another character is in fact the case, I'm gonna be pissed, because that is such bullshit.
I still think both of them.
They have to
Both
both
of them.
be still okay,
Well,
right?
well. No, I still get the vibe that at least my interpretation of both of their performances. I think they're both wooden, dude. I feel like
really?
I feel like
I
they
like
both
Kyle.
I feel like they both come across as not like seasoned performers a lot of the time. Some of the delivery is a little stilted. Personal opinion, obviously.
I like Kyle. I don't know. I feel like Andy's he's been the same since he showed back up at the end of Curse of Chucky.
How about all of the jokes about his stature? Wasn't that just weird?
It was a little weird.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I liked Kyle. I thought she did a good job. I thought the fact that she was left by Andy last episode, and then she kind of does a shitty turn this episode by drugging the kids.
Well, she was trying to protect them though. So,
And then, but I mean, if the house blows up because she entered the door, and Andy was technically closer to the bomb than she was,
yeah, and,
she had
and
a
remember,
giant metal door in front of her too.
Yeah,
So if the
and
bomb goes off, she's got the Indiana Jones refrigerator armor going on with that metal door.
Oh Jesus, there is no fourth Indiana Jones. What are you talking about?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I overstep? We should get a shot at the beginning of season 2 of just a destroyed house with the door lying on some rubble, and then you see Kyle move the door out of the way and get up and brush herself off. I would love that, because if they really got rid of Kyle off camera with a bullshit explosion that should have killed Andy easier than her, I'm gonna be pissed.
Yeah, I think she's coming back, man. And also, it was still a little weird though, because Andy was very well aware that it would have been a booby trap door, as he even mentions to Devin, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, and if
yeah, I know it's booby trap.
Well, and if she heard Chucky screaming like a kid, she should have heard Andy say, "Kyle, stop!" as well.
Oh.
So I don't know.
Okay, so we've discussed the flashback aspect. This was the least flashbacky of the entire season.
But remember when we talked about it,
one segment.
When we talked about it last episode, I was like, it felt like he was maybe going off to go into Child's Play territory for that night, and
Which
apparently that was correct. Yeah. So we find out that apparently it's Tiffany though that called Chris Sarandon's character, Detective Mike, in order to go and find where Chucky was that night and start the entire Chucky good guy doll thing. You know what I mean? So
what what a bitch, man. I mean, no, I'm kidding.
They
Obviously,
do
but
have the worst relationship.
they really do.
you know,
Yeah,
But
as was even reaffirmed in this particular episode. You know, it's completely confirmed. It's so odd because there's this splintering, and yet, I mean, she was very hateful of the essence of Chucky that was in Fiona, and then when that particular doll walked up and it was all sweet to her and complimenting her, like that's where there's a lot going on that I just don't think makes a lot of sense.
well, I
within
think
this particular
Tiffany's
story.
a kook. Tiffany's always
Yeah.
been a kook. So I
So
think
yeah,
she just makes
and-
terrible decisions, and like even though there was an aspect of the same serial killer that just treated her like shit, the fact that this seems like a nicer version that saved her, she's already almost swayed towards him. But then isn't
it's
she?
the-
Oh no, she goes and cuts his head off.
Yeah, yeah. But I guess it is the cliche of the fact that, you know, gay or straight, if you continue going back to an abusive relationship, it's a behavioral sort of situation.
Yeah.
You know, where you will continue to go, I'm one who has been there. You know, where it's like, oh, the making up is so great, and yet then the abuse that you endure afterwards is not even worth the course of action and everything. But
Yeah.
so yeah, what did you think about the emergence of that doll at the very end? Did you like it?
Tiffany?
Because Tiffany, yeah, exactly. Because
I wanted to see where Andy was. I mean, I imagine. So what I thought was going to happen, because the truck was aimed at Tiffany's car, was that I thought Andy was going to smash the truck into the car and blow everyone up.
I think he was trying to do that, but then
No, he pulled off immediately. Like he just pulled off and then flipped her off as he was going. I don't think that was ever his plan.
Yeah. You're right.
But
Sorry.
he was aimed at her, and I was like, oh damn, this is gonna be hardcore. I guess maybe if it was just gonna be one season, maybe that was the plan. Andy's just gonna blow him and Tiffany and all 72 dolls up at once.
Wouldn't it be funny if they filmed 2 alternate scenes depending on if they got the renewal or not? Right?
Yeah, that'd be great. But yeah, so he pulls off and he takes off. We don't know what his intent is, but then Tiffany smashes, or the Tiffany doll rather, smashes the thing and has a little gun and tells Andy, drive. And he's like, okay. And so that's where that ends.
Okay, so clarify for me though, dude, because when I was watching this, I was like, okay,
that
so
was the Tiffany doll that was
isn't
at
that-
the back of the car in Cult of Chucky.
which is technically Jennifer Tilly is in that doll, right?
No.
No. Okay.
Well, technically, so what happened is the Tiffany doll put her soul into Jennifer Tilly. My thinking is this was Jennifer Tiffany's first attempt at splintering her soul into a doll.
Okay.
So
Well, I guess that
is
would
the
make sense.
yeah, this is the first splintered Tiffany that's in this doll.
No.
But we also got something in this. We got Glenda name checked, and it sounds like they
They're gonna
might have
bring it to
combined bodies, right? Because at the end of Seed, they were in 2 different bodies. There was a little boy and a little girl, but now she referred to it as one person, but then also referred to them as a them.
Yeah.
So I think they combined into one. She moved both souls back into one body, but their preference is to be called a them.
Yeah, well, it's the pronoun game, to quote,
Yeah.
Chasing Amy. Where,
But did you get the impression they're no longer 2 separate kids like I did as well?
No, I guess I didn't get that vibe.
Oh,
I
so
just
you
got
think
the
it's
fact
still
that-
2 separate? You think the them is referring to literally them?
Well, I have a lot of gender transitional friends.
No,
who
but
are,
she made it singular sounding at one point. She
but
did.
I mean, but the use of like a they or them is where it's a little bit.
But that's what I'm saying. If she makes it sound like a singular person, you can still. Trisha Paytas refers to herself as a them. So there are still singular people that refer to themselves as a them, and that's the impression that I got. Is
Yeah,
that
well-
now they're a singular entity once again, but they just refer to themselves as a them.
Okay, I can second that notion then.
So I think the last thing to talk about might be the gore in this one, Fuego. Because I guess, I mean, it was all shot the way the whole show's been shot and everything like that. So there was a bit more gore, but it was largely under seat gore. So it's not like pleasant gore to not that any gore is pleasant to think about, but this is a particularly unpleasant kind of gore to think about because it's it's either butt cheek, butthole, or vaginal gore. Like it's not really fun gore to imagine.
But yet nothing that has to be excessively shown. There was nothing gratuitous about the
True.
gore in
But
this,
let's be
you know?
honest, any single theater seat has a hard undercarriage. Is
Yeah.
that knife going to get through that metal plating under the seat? I mean, that's...
I mean, if you're in some old school theaters, sure enough, and
Okay.
this didn't feel like a chain theater to me. It felt like the
Yeah,
old timey small town, like we're doing the revival screening of Frankenstein as a fundraiser sort of situation. So
All
I don't
right.
know. I guess the old timey sort of places. I just watched the little Eli Roth short Thanksgiving the other day,
Thanksgiving.
and yeah, and where the girl is on the trampoline and
Yeah,
falls
yeah.
down on the knife. Holy smokes! Like that was significantly more unnerving and creepy for me than what we got in this. As far as effects go, I have to say I felt like the expressiveness of Chucky's face in this.
I agree. I feel like it
was
took a jump.
legit, dude. It was legit better than just about any other episode. As
His,
far as like,
he has like individual facial muscles that move
Yeah.
now to like change his expressions. It's really fucking cool.
it was totally convincing in this episode, especially in some of his monologues and some of his shit talking and some of those mean scenes. Like, because yeah, I've been like not so much about the design of the doll at times. It's been better than Colt, but yet it still has looked just okay at times. But when he talked in this one, like they saved it for the penultimate, where he was just fearsome for the first time. I would say since like 3, honestly. So
Yeah. And it didn't get, like, there was a few times in this episode where they did a little person or child replacement.
for the run over hug with Tiffany,
That part, and then there was another part that they also used it. So that is still, a thing that they go to. But I don't know, is there anything else to say in particular about episode 8 before we launch into kind of like our overall season thoughts?
I mean, not an excessive amount. I'm hopeful that one character has survived that you have alluded to, and
Are you okay with how the kids ended up being all buddy? Devin, Jake, and Alexi?
it's ho hum, to be honest. And there was this like doubling down of the relationship between Jake and Devin, which is fine. But it's just really the arc of the Lexi character that I'm just less into. I feel like they could have even retained a little bit of her bitchy snarkiness and still had her be okay enough with them, and yet they totally abandoned it. And I still don't necessarily know if, like, I'm more invested in these new kids, to be fair, than I am in how they've handled the legacy characters, with the exception of Fiona. Fiona Dorff and Tilly, like their whole thing that is going on, I find that actually quite compelling and interesting, and especially with how they ended.
Within this universe, yeah. Although, yeah, it ended so oddly because, over the course of the season, basically, Tiffany, Jennifer Tilly, has found that she enjoys being with Nika when Nika's personality is around more than Chucky, because Chucky still treats her like trash, even after all these years in movies. And so she basically, at the end, is so tired of Chucky being able to do her wrong that she literally cuts off the arms and legs of Nika Chucky, and so they're unable to do anything in return. And it's such a fucking crazy dramatic thing. I'm like, holy shit, really? Like, poor Fiona Dorff. But I mean, all that means is she's gonna have to wear green,
Like,
stockings
sleeves
and
stuff.
feet stuff, but
But I have to ask, and I guess this just, if anything, just further solidifies the mania of this Tiffany character. But Fiona's character, even when it was her, they've never given us any indication that there is like a close emotional connection in like the sex and in any of that other stuff. They've been like, yeah, she's a hostage, and so if anything, she is just saving face and doing her thing. And so for that reason, I guess, as I was going to pose the question to you, I almost feel like I answered it myself, because I'm like, oh yeah, well, she would be crazy being the Tilly Tiffany character. And so, yeah, she would fall in love with a character that isn't even in love with her. And I guess that is kind of part of the MO, so to speak. So it does make sense, but yeah.
Well, let's talk about then our thoughts on season 1 as a whole, because we know that it's been renewed for season 2. I'm guessing that means we're going to get another 8 episodes.
Yep, they said 2022, so next year we're getting more.
So Chucky 2 is what they're referring to it as. But yeah, so Fuego, what did you think of season 1 overall then?
It started off a little slow, and it took me some time to actually get invested in the characters. But sometimes, especially with kid actors, I need a few episodes to really just find interest and invest myself in, because I love a good coming of age story and all that different shit. But with younger storytelling, especially of what I perceive as the YA variety, which this started out in my estimation, I'm like, no, it's YA Chucky, great. But I kind of abandoned those notions as I got to grow and care a little bit more about the characters. Now, I won't go as far as to say that I loved Jake and Lexi and Devin because I didn't, It was just really more so trying to figure out what Chucky's plan and ploy and all that different shit was. So it was a very solid run. I will give it that. I would not say this is 4-star material. It was more so very dependable sort of show. And thankfully they found that sweet spot with just 8 episodes. I think if they went 10 or 12 or God forbid supernatural status like a 24 or whatever,
Jesus.
it would have worn out its welcome. So they gave us just enough for me to actually start to care about the kids when I didn't care about them initially. And I'm still kind of conflicted about the implementation of Kyle and Andy. I don't know, and
I feel like they were done dirty.
yeah, they didn't get enough, man. I don't think that it felt like almost, dare I say, the end of the Ghostbusters movie, Afterlife, where they just show up because people want to see them as opposed to them really having an important part in the process of the storytelling.
I feel like it's even worse than that. Like, they were utilized through about 4 of the episodes and completely underutilized. And it's such a shame because it's giving the legacy characters such short shrift when they helped solidify why this series is a legacy series at this point. So I was bummed about that. That's why if Kyle's actually dead, I'm going to be really, really pissed. I'm glad that Andy is still around for now, but I mean, that would be just so bad. Unless Christine Elise really just didn't want to be a part of the series anymore, then it's like, okay, I guess I get it, but
which happens all the time.
There should have been a much more heroic send-off for her if that was going to be the case.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And to the point of Andy, Alex Vincent, I thought he was better in Cult, dude. I felt like they wrote the motivation better in Cult, and yet
plateaued the exact same.
Yeah, it just didn't.
He wasn't better. He wasn't worse, in my opinion.
The real stars, though, are the ladies in this estimation, in my personal estimation. The reemergence of Fiona and Jennifer Tilly, they were both great in what they did, and especially with Fiona Dourif, those flashback scenes for all of the derision that they have received. I thought that her in the garb of her father and everything, I thought she was convincing, and I thought she was good. I hated the ADR. We talked about that countless times, but I felt like from embodying the mannerisms and just the actual physical performance, I thought she was great. And then even when she was channeling her father's character in her own body, where I thought succeeded even more so, where she was playing Chucky, in her own body as opposed to the flashback stuff. Damn, dude, she's a very talented actress, and props off to her. The apple has not fallen far.
So yeah, my overall thoughts on this season were it was a successful run. It had its rocky moments.
For sure.
It had definitely a more of a CW start than I would have liked with the kids. But I was actually impressed with how they melded the TV storyline and the Cult storyline. I knew it was gonna happen. It was just a matter of how well they did it. And the transition was relatively smooth, even though there were rocky points along the way, as I said. So I feel like I'm glad it was a successful enough to warrant a second season.
Oh, yeah,
because it would have been a completely unsatisfying ending if that's how it actually had ended. But nonetheless, I'm glad we're going to get more. I'm glad it's going to be more of the Brad Dourif Chucky. I'm guessing that means that we're not going to get anything associated with the 2019 Child's Play anytime soon,
I've still
if
heard
ever.
Clamorings. I've still heard clamorings that they want to, because that's a separate universe at this particular point, you know?
But...
And so, well, if you watch the Behind the Monsters on Shudder, they talk about potential plans for another one in that regard. Really? And how they thought it was just kind of a cool little, I don't know, pivot or whatever. The one thing that I wanted to ask you, though, so I know that I don't know if I praised Cult necessarily, but I was a fan of Cult of Chucky. I know you were not. has this series made you like it a little bit more?
I
maybe?
liked it a little bit more
Or-
when I watched it ahead of the series again, because that was the second time I watched it, and I did like it a little bit more knowing the cheese that was coming.
Yeah.
But the series didn't change my thoughts on Cult, though. Cult was still its own crazy, weird thing that they tried to do that I don't think was as successful as they wanted it to be. I think that's the case with some aspects of this series, but then I think some aspects were definitely as successful as they wanted it to be. So it's a
Well, at
little,
this point-
it's a little bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you, because at this point I feel like they're almost married to the mythology that he
Oh
put
yeah, they have to
in
be.
Cult, and so yeah, and then you get a lot of that, especially in the back half.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, this really went a long way to marrying the stuff from Cult with the original Child's Play stuff with Andy and Kyle and all that. That's why
Yeah.
I'm pissed if they got rid of Kyle in such a way, because it's like, damn it, that's the old history you're erasing in such a nonchalant, off-camera, like, unimpactful way, you know?
Which is unfortunately something they do on TV all the time, though, where there's just like an unceremonious like death of a beloved character, and you know.
Yeah, but it's not like an off-camera, like an explosion that someone else survives, but you don't for no reason.
Yeah, anytime it is, though, it's because of contract sort of stuff, or somebody just
Usually.
doesn't want to be a part of it anymore. So, if it does become the case, I think you are spot on, dude, in that speculation.
So, as far as season 2, you said you're excited for it. I'm excited for it as well. Any other thoughts on season 1? Again, I think we covered it in our episode by episode breakdown. If you guys missed any of them, we talked about all 8 episodes, so there's no sense in really rehashing all of that material. So I figured just our overall thoughts on the season and our thoughts going into season 2 was a good way to go. Any final thoughts on Chucky season 1 or what we're to expect in season 2?
Nothing to expect in season 2, because I guess we see this whole like a global Chucky sort of thing. But even within that, I found myself where I thought initially that whole army of Chuckies was going to be at the theater, like killing all those people, and I was like, if that was the case, and you only have the fucking National Guard or the army, and they would just like squash this quickly. The biggest thing about Chucky is that he kills, in disguise. He's like a creeper in that sort of regard. So, just the element of surprise is his biggest weapon in a lot of cases. And so, although I did like the fact that they addressed how he has like human strength despite being
finally
adult. There was one moment where Jake is just like, how the hell? And they talked about that in the Behind the Monsters episode about Chucky and Child's Play on Shudder. So I thought that was cool. But I will honestly give it up to the adult actors. I will give it up to Devon Sawa, despite the fact that he played one character who then morphed into another character with the twin sibling, and then he was started near the end playing the same character, which was okay. But he's good in Black Friday, man. So whatever. And then also just the return voice work of Brad Dourif. I thought his delivery was terrific, on point. I did not see a single, or here, I guess I should specify, a single stutter as far as just the consistency of quality from him. He was great, dude. He emanated the menace that I wanted, and he is just a consummate professional in that regard. And also, Tilly and, Fiona, the kids were okay, I suppose, but those adults, I think, really shine specifically. So
Sure. So, I agree with basically everything that you said. So I don't know that there's much else to say about this, you guys. So I think the first season was a complete success. I'm happy to report that, and excited to see what we get next year. So, thank you guys very much for watching. Why don't you let us know what your thoughts are in the comments down below regarding the first season of Chucky. Are you excited for season 2? Do you feel like they should have wrapped it up in season 1 and gone back to movies? I'd love to know all of your guys' thoughts in those comments down below. While you're down there, feel free to click the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet. That way you get all the notifications for future episodes. We have a review of Nightmare Alley that's going to be going up very soon. That's the new Guillermo del Toro movie, and then lots of other stuff coming down the pipe in December. So thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
And Kristopher and Jaime and Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.